Cissie Graham Lynch is the daughter of Franklin Graham and the granddaughter of Billy Graham. Since 2010, Cissie has worked as part of both the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association and the Samaritan's Purse in various capacities. She has traveled the world advocating for initiatives that reach women, children, and millennials. Her mission is to stand boldly for the gospel in an ever-compromising world and encourage others to stand on the only truth. Cissie is also the host of the successful podcast Fearless with Cissie Graham Lynch. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Cissie Graham Lynch.
A live audience, it's been a while. But here we are tonight, we're talking about politics and religion. The two things they say you're not supposed to talk about in mixed company, especially after the last few years we've had in the political climate. But those happen to be the two things I'm very passionate about as a millennial, as a woman, as a mom. My faith, of course, was very intricately woven into my family, into our ministries, and politics and current events was always talked about in our home. My dad was always keeping it relevant with us. But I guess I was a little naive thinking all millennials were like me and loved politics as much as I did. Wrong. But that's because politics is an ugly word. We're all exhausted, we're all weary, we've become angry with the political environment that we have been in and we've seen. You turn on the news, he said this, he did that, she did this, they did this, and we're exhausted. But tonight, I want to encourage you, let's don't look at it as politics, but as governance. And who's going to govern over you? And you're kind of like, well, what does that mean? Who's going to govern over me? It sounds a little bureaucratic. It sounds a little bit distant. But it's not. It's what are we allowed to do in every single day of our life? From the moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed, what are we allowed to do? Where are we allowed to go? Kind of like what we've seen recently. Are we allowed to go to church? What am I allowed to buy? Where am I allowed to send my kids to school? Who's going to make the decisions of what books my children read in their school? All of this, everything that deals with us on an everyday life is what it means of who governs us. And we're in a time in our country where we have two political parties with two completely different visions of how America should be ran and how they are going to govern us. And it's never mattered more of how important it is of who's going to govern us. But we've heard tonight in 2016, over 40 million evangelicals did not vote. You know many of them. I have friends that didn't vote. And there were many reasons, but one that I hear often, and I'm hearing again this year on an important election as we are at the crossroads that we are in this country, and one of the biggest reasons is I don't love either candidate. When did love become one of the standard and the tradition in America to vote for somebody? I don't love a politician. It's never been the standard before in this country. We didn't love Johnson, Nixon, or Carter. And Eisenhower's slogan was, I like Ike, because that's the best we could possibly hope for. But love, I'll tell you what I love. Other than God and my family and the right to worship freely in this country. I don't love the politician, but I love the public policy that politician will stand on. I love how they'll represent me, my faith, and my neighbors. But sitting out like we did, that so many people did back in 2016, is not an option. It's not an option for us women. It's not an option for us moms. We cannot afford to sit this election out. That time has passed where Christians can sit on the sideline. Because what has happened is so many people, because those who govern over us have told us for many years that we as Christians need to keep our faith inside of our church and inside of our homes, and it's not allowed anywhere else, and the time has passed. Because here's the bottom line. Right now, once again, we are at a crossroads. And who governs us has never mattered more. It is essential. Let's talk about the issue of life. Something we all believe in. Yes, a child inside a woman's womb growing and thriving, as science has now proven. And we have people who govern over us who believe not just a first trimester abortion, but that it's okay in the 6th, 7th, and 8th month up to the moment of birth. People, it's barbaric that we're even talking about a genocide such as this. When I was pregnant with my first child, I suffered from severe depression. Nobody talked to me about it. I heard about postpartum, not during prepartum, if you call it. Severe depression. And on the way to the hospital, I cried to my husband and I said, I don't want this child. I said, please, please, I don't want this child. And in the mental capacity that I was in, he kind of looked at me like, buckle up, it's a little too late, you're having a child, my poor husband. But if I had been surrounded by a group of women, or if I'd gone into the hospital in the mental capacity that I was in and there was a nurse, it would have been okay by those who govern us to exterminate that child. And I'm a millennial. I thought Roe versus Wade was the law of the land, that it wasn't going anywhere. We could just do things to chip away at it. And I was wrong. When I went to the March for Life this year and I saw young people with truth and with grace and with science, and they're going to change it and fight for those of life. We as Christians, cannot stand before God and say, I didn't vote, I turned my back on the issue. How about religious liberty, as we've just heard, where our forefathers fought for this idea not to be silenced, not to be bullied. It's the first part of the First Amendment. That's how crucial it was to be the foundation, not for people to choose between their job or their faith. That is truly anti-American. It's against everything we've ever stood for. Our religious liberty is essential, and we have to fight for it. Our children's education, where sexual ideology hasn't become the forefront of education endeavors, where biology is not bigotry, where moms are going to stand up for their children's education. I just had to go to the school board and fight that they're not going to teach my child in kindergarten and first grade and second grade a whole entire month about LGBT for an entire month. We are at a time in our nation, I believe there's one side of who governs us that are fighting for the hearts and souls and minds of our children, and we can't sit on the sideline. There's those who govern over us, who are fighting to govern over us, that think it's okay for an 8-year-old, yes, an 8-year-old, to decide what sex they want to be. We look at our courts, who will continue to decide on the issues that we will discuss tonight. They will decide on life, they can decide on death. Our courts and our judges, they will decide, will we continue as a free America the way our forefathers intended it to be, or will be stopped in our tracks? Our courts and our judges are essential. But let me tell you one thing before I end. What is essential to all human beings? And it's love. We need it, we seek it, we crave it. But the greatest love story ever told was that of Jesus Christ, with his arms wide open. And he stood before the world that was mocking him as they mock today. Even in Washington, they mock Jesus, they mock prayer. But he stood before the world and he surrendered his life for you. And he provided us freedom. Freedom from sin, freedom that what held us captive. And he gave us freedom. But the beauty of freedom, it's a choice. We can choose him or we can reject him. That's the beauty of it. He gives us the choice and freedom. And we here as Americans, we've been given the precious and extraordinary gift of an earthly freedom established by government that is so precious that those in the history of the world have never known until this country, where we've been given freedom. But it's a choice to be part of the solution. And what are you going to do with it? To whom much is given, much is expected. And we as Christians, much is expected of us in this election with the freedom and the gift to be a part of the solution. Thank you.